Let's get educated. That's why we're here, to bring you the stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses. It's time for a little education.
Welcome, one and all. I am Katie Petrick, joined by the man who waves with all 5 fingers. Well, 4 fingers and a thumb, right?
That's right.
It's Jake Jacobs. All right, just a quick reminder, everyone. We are on Rumble. So if you would, go to rumble.com/Freedom Project and follow our freedom-loving page because you know what? America. All right, so we have a community in California that is standing up for a first grade teacher who has repeatedly been basically punched down. So we got something. But the teacher's been punched in the face by a student, and the school's doing nothing. So what's happening?
Katie, this is just unbelievable. This is a young kid. Members of the community at Hanford, California are calling, like you and I are asking. We're asking answers. They are calling for more answers from their school district after a grade school teacher says she was assaulted several times by the same student. So teachers and parents berated members of the Pioneer Union School District on Wednesday evening after Madeline Cardoza posted photos of a black eye and bruises on her legs from an alleged student assault. We have to watch and see how what went about.
It's incredibly sad that it took a bruised and battered face to bring attention to what teachers across our county have been dealing with quietly for years.
An emotional room after a social media post went viral showing a Frontier elementary teacher with the black eye. According to the post, this is the 3rd black eye she suffered from the same student.
They need to protect themselves. You guys have done nothing for this stuff. Teachers should not be assaulted.
One teacher recalling her experience with assault in the school district after serving as a substitute teacher for her daughter's class.
Then I subbed in her class and I was choked by my lanyard and punched in the stomach by a student. I had an immediate understanding of what was going on and it wasn't learning.
Dozens of concerned parents and teachers left with more questions than answers. One parent I spoke to describing a tough conversation with her son who was in the same classroom.
I had to ask him if he feels safe in the classroom, if he knows who the child is, and he said the child is still in class, that the child sits in the back of the classroom, that the child is not allowed at recess.
I asked the Pioneer Union School District for a statement, however no comment is being provided.
There's so much complexity in questioning I have with this, considering we're talking about a first grade student.
That was my very first question. Those are the age of the kids that you're teaching right now. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I have all of them. Some of
okay.
them, yep, I have them for gym. But
right.
how can a 6-year-old, I know how a 6-year-old absolutely could get wild and give black eyes.
But repeatedly.
And the fact that the 6-year-old is still in the classroom in the back of the class. The next question then immediately becomes, well, there are many all at the same time, but where's the mom and dad of the 6-year-old? Have they been called in? What's happening? Are we just sending notes home like, oh, Billy punched someone in the eye again, a teacher or a substitute or another student? Like, how is the school not doing anything? And then it's like, where's the principal of this school?
Well,
where's everyone of this
the school board?
That's,
where's the school board?
They're having to go to the...
Where is the discipline? Usually the vice principal is the disciplinarian in this particular case. We have no understanding of anything being followed through. One of the positive things, though, is to see the parents being involved in the outrage, and they're upset and they're concerned. They're asking, like we are, the same kind of questions, like, how can this be happening?
But on the flip side with that, how is it that, I mean, are the parents just finding out that there was a kid in the classroom who is this violent? If the teacher, it's her 3rd time getting a black eye? Like, why are you letting your children go to the school and be in that classroom knowing, as that mom said, that, yep, the kid is still in the classroom? Like, you want to put your kid in that situation? I don't understand what is happening here. It's California.
Okay. You just, Katie,
sorry,
you're always beating me to it because it's.
Hey, let's not talk about beating. There's been enough of that in this story.
Well, I'm not Joe Biden here, all right? Anyways, no, it just once again reflects what's been happening in California. It's not to indict all the citizens of California, but the education system in California leaves a heck of a lot to be desired. It allows this kind of stuff to go on. It never should have gotten this out of hand. Something has got to be done sooner than later, and let's just hope there's some action taken. Or maybe there already has been.
Kind of doubt. Like so far, the action has been okay. They got a little news story on it. I truly wonder if the kid is still in the back of the classroom.
He shouldn't
And the thing
be.
is, that kid needs recess. I'm not advocating for whoever this child may be. There's clearly something going on with the child. But probably the worst thing you can do is make that kid not have recess. That kid clearly needs to run off some energy or some emotion or
he clearly
something.
needs to be taken out of the classroom.
Well,
Now, granted,
there
there could
needs
be
to be
easily be something going on at home, and he's lashing out. But it's still there's no reason for this to be going on. Not now.
Correct. And so again, California, we'll see what actually ends up happening with that. So, all right, if we're gonna go from California, we might as well go to the middle of the country where no one cares about us. But this is I guess a reiteration of points that Jake and I have been making over and over again. We keep telling you here on Educated that every school district across the nation is seeing things and teaching things that goes against everything education was actually meant to be.
Even in the Midwest?
Even in the Midwest. So we keep telling you, we've been telling you for years at this point, that gender ideology is everywhere in every school. To some extent. Some worse, some better. But we're going to go to West Des Moines Community Schools in Corn Country, Iowa. Corn Country, Iowa,
Theoretically
people.
Conservative Iowa,
Theoretically. Right? And that district, the West Des Moines Community Schools district, is directing staff to avow gender ideology, to honor American land, and to decry slavery. So West Des Moines Community Schools has an acknowledgement statement, or multiple statements, if you will, and we're just going to go through several of them, and we will go at them one at a time. But there was a little thing that got sent out, and it was a FOIA. So they got a request for some records, and then they had to turn them over to, it was Parents Defending Education, PDE. They're a parental rights group. So they obtained all the documents that included these statements, such as, we acknowledge the indigenous Native Americans on whose ancestral land we meet today. We thank and honor the elders, ancestors, communities, and children of the Native communities still connected to this land. Another acknowledgement statement that these staff members are supposed to make is that we acknowledge the contributions and achievements of enslaved Africans and their ascendants and descendants to our country. We thank and acknowledge the full humanity of a people who shaped America. All right, here's yet another one. We acknowledge victims and survivors of violence, assaults, and trauma of all types. We honor you and affirm your experiences. Victims and survivors, seen and unseen, in this room and outside of it. And finally, we acknowledge that the sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression are distinct and dynamic concepts. We welcome and honor all gender identities, and we thank and acknowledge the full humanity and the contribution of all individuals. Affirmed. Acknowledged.
You know, the imbalance of the statement. I mean, do they talk about pre-Columbian is lacking pristine? The civilizations before Columbus came to the Great Turtle Island, America was known for notoriously being vicious and being warrior-like. These were Indian tribes versus Indian tribes, and you hear this over and over again how, the horrible things that were done by white man, and we've stole their land, when they don't deal with the fact that they owned slaves, they enslaved each other, they controlled each other, they hurt each other, they were not environmentally positive and affirming.
Correct. Well, it's all these things, but we don't have time to acknowledge that in a statement, Jake.
Okay.
So instead, here's another one. When they're talking about labor, they said, we collectively acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, was made possibly by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants, again, who suffered the horror of the transatlantic slave trade, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We are indebted to their labor and sacrifice, and we acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can still be felt and witnessed today.
Katie, I don't
Des Moines.
I don't have a problem with
Iowa.
acknowledging slavery in America, that the Democratic
Correct.
Party were the preservers and perpetuators of slavery and Jim Crow and the KKK and all that. But let's bring balance into this. There were founding fathers who fought to end slavery. George
Yep.
Washington signed a Northwest Ordinance that outlawed slavery in the northern part of the country.
Ooh.
Sorry, Katie.
You know who was against slavery and ever owned slaves? John Adams.
Oh, my God, big time. Big time. Abigail and John Quincy. But
Just putting it out there.
I'm just saying a little more balance in this statement here.
Well,
We're not
like
denying-
truth and not like skewing things to make it so that you have to. Apparently, what it sounds like, just in the verbatim, in the rhythm
the
of
reiteration.
these statements, it's almost like Nancy Pelosi bending the knee again for 7 minutes and
Or
whatever it was.
Angela Davis.
It's
or
any of
yes.
them. It's ridiculous. So Erica Sanzi, who's the director of outreach for PDE, actually summed it up nicely. She said, this is indoctrination. The acknowledgments read like dogmatic mantras that one must recite in order to be in good standing in the district. There's no place for this in a public school district funded with public dollars that serves everyone, including those who want nothing to do with the ideology that informs these statements. Bingo.
And Katie, to me, the most egregious is the statement in relationship to gender. You talk about how this impacts young minds, and you wonder why they're having problems right now in schools with guys pretending to be girls and girls pretending to be guys. I mean, this is feeding the monster.
Well, and it's not even okay. It would be bad enough if it was guys saying they're girls and girls saying they're guys. It's guys saying they're every random thing, or girls saying
Or a
they're
guy who's pretending to be a girl who's attracted to girls. I mean, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre.
Yeah, the Q and the T is really, really bizarre.
All right. Well, hey, we've just scratched the surface on this episode of Educated, so stay with us.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on pristine quality bedding, towels, slippers, signature pillows, and much more when you use the code EDUCATED. That's EDUCATED. Educated. Support this show and a great American company.
Another example we have here of how Dr. Jake and I have been talking for years on the topic of school choice. And we've been told that if school choice, where you get a choice in which school your kids would attend, if that actually became a thing, then clearly the world is going to fall apart. If that happens.
By the teachers' unions.
It's going to fall apart. We can't have it happen. Well, how dare we would even think to allow families to choose where their kids go and have a chance at getting an education. How dare we? That thought cannot cross our minds. And then, when that thought does cross our minds and then it's actually sneakily allowed, how dare those students actually do well? Because we have a study that was published in October showing that cities with robust charter school programs have drastically lowered the performance gap between low-income students and their peers. Think on that one for just one moment. Wow.
And by the way, just for the record, that may be a recent study, but I've been in education for many, many, many years. 30 years ago, they were saying this very same thing.
But we're not allowed to have
But
that.
the
How
teachers'
dare
unions
you?
kept on disavowing it. And the interesting, because the Democratic presidential candidates who kept on wanting union money, they kept on sending their kids to private schools.
Yeah, they get to choose.
Yes.
But you don't. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Progressive Policy Institute, PPI, found that student performance rose in every city with the majority of low-income students when 33% or more are enrolled in charter schools. So you're saying the more options out there that these parents can have their students go to, ultimately the better they are doing. Shocker. All right. Non-white students make up a large percentage of those benefiting from school choice policies. Wait a minute. That's not right. It's racist of us to have school choice. It is completely racist of us to do that.
Studies have shown that actually school choice has helped minority populations in big cities throughout this country. This is what blows me away. In Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Chicago, when black parents have been wanting to send their kids to other schools, to alternative educational sources, they get attacked. They absolutely get attacked. And the proof's in the pudding, because these choices have been helping their children.
Absolutely. And yet we're not allowed to talk about truth because we need to keep this narrative going. Anyway, the Progressive Policy Institute wrote, our report belies the often heard but unfounded criticism that charters somehow drain legacy schools of the best students and resources to the detriment of those left behind. Evidently, the growth of enrollment in charter schools creates a positive, competitive dynamic with the traditional district schools, which have to up their game to attract parents and students. Wait for it, Jake. You're saying competition can breed excellence?
Yes.
Is it true? Or should we just let the government keep doing everything for us? What do you think? It's almost like our economic system being competitively driven can find success if only our education system would also go back to the model of competition.
And it blows me away, going back to what I said earlier, when you think of the elites within the Democratic Party who have the wherewithal, guess where they send their children, and guess what they choose to do. They love this stuff. They send their kids to these schools.
Exactly. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Now, between the 2010-2011 school year and 2022-2023 school year, so they took a look at this big gap of time, and they said the achievement gap between the low-income students and their peers was narrowed. And we take a look in Camden, New Jersey, by 42%.
Wow.
Where 68% of the students were enrolled in charter schools by 2023. So they started it, the more they got enrolled in the charter schools, guess what? The achievement gap decreased with those low-income students. It was narrowed by 42%. That's awesome. And then low-income student performances rose by over 20% in Camden during that time period as the percentage of students attending the charter schools increased. That's what we're saying. So you get the kids into charter schools, you get them, an actual education, and they can rise to the occasion.
Yeah, they flourish.
Which is mean they're being educated.
They absolutely flourish. And to me, it reiterates the corruption of the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers. It's all about their power, their money, their self-aggrandizement. It's not about the kids.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting since you were talking about all those politicians. Anyway, in D.C., where all those politicians hang out, that same time frame in Washington, D.C., the gap was closed by 38%, with 45% of students enrolled in charter schools. In Indianapolis, Indiana, the gap closed by 23%, with 58% of the students attending charter schools. And it says non-white students are among the biggest beneficiaries of school choice. I'll say it again. Non-white students are among the biggest beneficiaries of school choice, making up 70% of charter school students, despite only comprising about half of the district in the cities that they actually surveyed. So
This is not new.
No.
I mean, this is amazing. It's a reiteration of what we've known for 34. In fact, Milwaukee was on the fine cutting edge of charter school options and choices, and the Democratic Party and the union went apoplectic nuts trying to destroy that opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm just going to end on this, which is what the report concluded. These findings may provide a clear policy prescription for improving outcomes in low-income urban communities that have long struggled with school improvement and substandard student achievement. Get rid of the unions. There we go. All right. Well, here's a question. How are you all doing out there with the time change? Are you okay? Are you a little tired? Are you a little, I guess, having extra energy? Jake definitely is not on the latter part. Now, there's a new study that finds a huge percent of Americans feel a sense of dread days after changing their clocks for the daylight saving time. We're going to talk about that next.
In 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream.
Get free activation now with promo code EDUCATED.
Well, it's time to talk about time. There's a survey of over 2,000 Americans revealed that 40% feel a sense of dread when preparing to fall back, a feeling that lasts much longer than just a day or two surrounding the time change. Results reveal this sense of dread sets in about 11 days prior to the changing of clocks, and it doesn't end till about 13 days after the change. I know this sounds crazy, but my wife and I both have been saying, now granted, I'm admitting I'm getting older here, but as we get older, we find it does affect us. Not this 11 and 13 days, but a couple of days, we feel a little groggy. I like it better in the spring, but I do not like it in the fall. I don't know if that makes sense or
All right,
not.
Sam, I am. Now, they're calling this the daylight saving scaries. You ever hear of the teacher scaries?
Yes,
like the Sunday night teacher scaries where the dread of having to go to work the next day. So apparently 59% of these respondents would permanently stop the switch to and from daylight saving time if given the chance. 59, so like basically 6 out of 10 people. Would you? Well, I think you would stop.
It goes on to say that 69% of boomers, I mean, we don't like this. We don't like it. We don't like it.
We don't like it, Sam, I am.
Well, is it crazy to say that they talk about circadian rhythms and possibly this throws things off? This is man-made manipulation of the clock. I'm just wondering. I just think, in fact, studies have shown, this recent study, that all different levels, the generational levels, are upset with this. They don't like it. Most people don't care for it.
Yeah, most parents also don't like it, simply because depending on what kind of kids you have, you don't get that extra hour. Now it's just even darker in the morning.
There's even
scarier.
There's even, speaking of the stopping of time, there's a funeral company that has a little commercial spoof on it. Let's take a watch.
At Titan Casket, we obviously have an interest in you dying, but we can wait.
Methuen-based Titan Casket created an ad campaign to end daylight saving time. The ad hitting on the reported health dangers associated with the time change.
If an actual casket company still doesn't think it's worth keeping around, who does?
We're pinching ourselves every day. This ad is just amazing.
Titan, working with Hollywood heavyweight Maximum Effort, the production company started by actor Ryan Reynolds. It even creates a website that, in character, calls on people to bury daylight savings. And Titan, no stranger to the limelight. Their casket even making it into a Taylor Swift music video. But this all is more than just Hollywood buzz.
Part of our mission is to normalize conversations around death and dying. And so we are comfortable being bold in our marketing and using humor as a way to turn heads.
Of course, Senator Ed Markey long has pushed to end DST. The senator again on Friday, pushing for one time, once and for all. As for Titan, they're making no apologies for this.
We're playing the long game here. What are you going to do? Not die?
Yeah, I'm for ending it. This goes back to, what was it, World War I, when the Germans did it so they could have more light at night for fighting the war, for the war effort. We even implemented Woodrow Wilson, because he liked the Gulf, wanted daylight savings time, so we'd have an extra hour at night back in like 1918. FDR reintroduced it again during World War II. So we've been fighting the pros and the cons of this time change for a long time.
Well, I'm just tired of it. I'm sure Jake is too.
I am too.
All right. Well, if you do enjoy our content, at least, please consider subscribing to the audio podcast and weekly media e-blast, which does contain all of the top stories of the week. Simply go to stayeducated.org. Now for tired Jake and myself. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting what we do. Until next time, stay educated, America.